Hey, I got my friend Dave here. I met Dave at church, and Dave says he's wanting to get a little tractor.
Yep. We're buying a piece of property, and it's time to move from my little zero-turn Dixon to something a little bigger.
Yeah, a zero-turn Dixon. That's probably been around a while.
It has been. At least this one has been.
We're going to see if we can help Dave. Maybe learn a little bit more about the tractors that are available. Learn a little bit about attachments. I don't know. Learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah, cool. Good deal.
Let's get started.
So Tim, one of the questions I had is, one, does this have fluid in the tires?
Yeah, we do. We have rim guard
Okay.
in the tires, which is a heavy beet juice.
Okay.
Okay, so it's heavier than water, won't freeze, won't corrode your rims.
Right.
Right, and so it's environmentally friendly, but yet it's real heavy.
With that fluid in the tires, do you still need the weights on the PT or on the 3-point hitch when you're doing heavy jobs?
Yes, we do. Any of these light tractors have to have rear ballast. Now,
Okay.
if you kind of look at the way the geometry of these tractors are, I mean, these tires hold a lot of fluid, so there's a
Right.
lot of weight, but it's where it is, right? When you're using the front end loader, the rear axle becomes the hinge point, right? And the front axle becomes the area that takes a lot of stress.
Okay.
So if any weight here on the axle itself, that'd be wheel weights or filled tires, while it'll help keep the back end down a little bit, it won't remove any of the stress on the front axle.
Okay.
Whereas weights back here will tend to remove some of that stress
Okay.
on the front axle.
So in many cases where they're running a belly mower, that you've got the weight in the middle, but that doesn't help us with our weight distributed to the back end, correct?
Yeah, well, there's several different questions there. I mean, the belly mower, really, I wouldn't, since they're so easy to attach, I wouldn't use that with the loader ever.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Especially with the Deere. The Deere doesn't lift the belly mower very high, right? That's one of the weaknesses. I assume it's probably because of the auto connect deck, right? Just the way it works, they just can't lift it very high. Maybe there's too much mechanism under there. So it doesn't lift very high. So because it's so easy to take off, I just take it off anytime I'm not mowing.
Okay.
So some people ask, do you take your mower off when you use your loader? Well, no, I take my mower off when I'm finished mowing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep,
And I put it
sure.
on right before I start mowing. I put it on only when I need it,
Yep.
right? So it's kind of a reverse thinking. So
Sure.
we only leave the deck on to mow, and we wouldn't have any weights on for that, right? For mowing, we wouldn't need any weights.
Right. Correct.
At least here in Indiana. Some places it's hilly, and they like to have a lot of weight on to try to lower that center of gravity. You would carry your weight low for that,
Okay.
right? So these tractors are a little bit tipsy on hills. I don't think you'll probably have to worry about that.
Shouldn't have that. And another question for you, Tim, as I'm looking at the 2 series versus the 3 series, what is the difference in frame size, weight, and that type of thing comparing one to the other?
Okay, that's a good question. The way I'll start on that is to say that there's 2 different 3 series. Okay, the 3E is a totally different tractor than the 3R.
Okay.
Okay, the 3E is essentially the size and weight of the 2R. Okay, so in my opinion, there's a little bit of a naming confusion there.
Yeah.
The 3E and the 2R are quite similar from frame size, and with the exception that the 3E has a lot less features. So I see the 2R as a step up from the 3E.
Okay.
Right?
Yep, sure.
So 3E has a little less capability than the 2R, especially on the loader, and then the 2R's from there. Now, the 3R is a totally different tractor.
Okay.
Okay, it is much more capable. It's much heavier, much more loader capability, horsepower. Yeah, I mean, it's just a bigger tractor overall.
Yeah.
Now,
Gotcha.
still, the 3R is unique among other tractor brands. It's got, especially with the 3046R, it's got the most horsepower in the smallest and narrowest wheelbase available. It's a relatively small tractor from a physical standpoint, but it's got a lot of capability, right? And really nobody else has one that size. I think it's kind of fascinating that nobody else has a tractor with the same horsepower capabilities as a 3. Most of them jump from, say, this size tractor to what Deere would have as the 4 Series.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I mean, the 3 Series, one of the complaints about the 3R is how tipsy it is, especially if you get a cab. So there is some disadvantage to having that narrow narrow stance too.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Having said that, the 3R is my dream tractor. So,
Mine too.
so what you're saying is I need to buy one so you can come play with it, right?
yeah, that would be great. You can just store it over here.
Okay, well, yeah, sure.
Hey, you want to try this thing out?
Yeah, sure.
So, first thing we need to do to start it up, we always have to shift to neutral.
Okay.
It won't start while it's in gear. I think you get up to the 4 Series, they'll finally do that.
Okay.
But the 1 and 2, and I'm not sure about the 3, but definitely the 4 Series will start in gear, but 1 and 2 will not. So shift to neutral, and then all you have to do is turn the key to start it. And once you get her started, you can put it in low gear,
Okay.
and you'll be ready to go. This controls your loader. It's sitting on the ground, right? Forward and backward pulls up the boom, and left and right curls and dumps the bucket. And that's all there is to it. The button that you see here doesn't do anything right now.
Okay.
Because we don't have any sort of a grapple or any sort of an
Gotcha.
item
Yep.
that requires a third function.
Yep.
You do have a tilt steering wheel. That's an advanced feature, so you can lower that if you want. Push it up a little
There
bit.
we go. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's got one more setting, whatever you want.
Yeah, no,
but-
it's pretty good.
So what I was thinking we might do is I ran a trench with some electrical wire, and it's got some extra soil behind here. It really shouldn't be extra soil. It eventually
But it
would
is.
settle down. But I'd like to spread this rock out over it, and I don't really want that soil in the way. So even
Okay.
though the rock's going to settle and go partially into the trench, I think we want to get some of that soil out of there. So I was thinking maybe you could try to use your loader a little bit to see if we can get that soil scraped off,
Okay.
and then we can transport it over here and pile it
All right.
over another area. You ever used a loader before?
A few times.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll just put you on the spot.
Yeah,
then.
yeah. We'll see how good I am, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go get a Pepsi, and you can let me
Okay.
know when you're done.
Sounds good.
Now, you may have noticed that when you press the hydrostat pedal that it throttled up.
Yep.
That feature is called auto throttle.
Okay.
Deere calls it e-throttle, I think. And you can still use the hand throttle to raise your base RPMs, but then when you press your pedal beyond that, it will throttle up a little more.
Gotcha.
It's a nice feature for loader work.
So for what we're doing here, is there really any need to run this throttle?
Very, very good question. And the answer is yes. With these small tractors, you really can't get by at idle.
Okay.
You really need some throttle. I would say at least half throttle to have enough hydraulic flow to do the job and to have enough horsepower to push yourself into your work. So yeah, I would run at least half throttle. Some folks would say run nearly full throttle. I'm fine with that. But some of it's a comfort level as well.
Sure, absolutely.
But using this size tractor at idle really limits your capability. You're not getting near all the horsepower.
Yep, gotcha. Okay.
This crook right here, when the crook is right there into that's your bucket level. So your bucket is tilted down now. Yeah. So that's just about bucket level. Now, you can do it frontwards like that, or you can go over and get on the other side and maybe and either pull it long ways here,
Okay.
but you can use it in back drag, and you might have just as good a luck.
Gotcha, sure. Okay.
Now, Dave had been looking at the 25 horsepower tractors. It's a very popular size right now. The larger frame 25 horsepower tractors, that would be like the 3025E in the Deere line, or the L2501 in the Kubota line. I'm trying to steer him away from that tractor. I understand its popularity. It makes perfect sense. It's going to be a very cost-effective tractor because it doesn't have all the DPF emissions stuff on it. But I think for Dave's situation, he's going to be disappointed in the power that tractor has. Now, one of the major points I want to say here is I don't really care what he does to this soil. He's just playing. We're going to cover all this up with rock eventually, and so this just gives him a way to try to do some detail work. I gave him a goal, right, which was to scrape this topsoil off of the grass. But I don't really care whether he does a good job of it or not, right? I mean, this is just a way to have a goal to practice.
I'm not sure I did a whole lot of good, but
You know, it's what I was telling the camera. It doesn't really matter. This is what we're going to do is we're going to put rock on all this.
gotcha.
Right. So I gave you a goal to so that you could try to do something,
Yep,
right?
yep.
But it's mainly so that you can try to use
Sure.
the loader,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And try to do some degree of detail work with the loader. So what did you think? What did you have trouble with? What did it get along well with on the loader?
Oh, I think probably the biggest thing was just trying to figure out where the loader was on the ground and what angle to get it set to where you actually felt like I was doing something, you know?
Yeah. Even with the bucket level indicator, which is a help.
Yeah, it is.
It's a help, but it's still hard to know because if you get it just a little bit too far down, it digs in.
Yep.
You saw right here. And if you get it too far up, it rides up over everything.
Well, and I also think too, you know, being ground versus concrete, you know, on concrete or, you know, some type of asphalt, something that's going to stop you where this, I'm sure I got gouges in your grass here just from not getting the right setting.
So the approach that I probably would use, given that this is recently excavated soil, right, would be to back drag rather than to forward push,
Okay.
right? Because forward push, you're going to be aggressive and you're going to tend to gouge.
Yep.
If you can back drag it, you can a lot of times pull it off. Now, what I noticed was when you were back dragging, you only get a few feet, and then it's going to ride up too, right? So
Yeah,
you go
sure.
back and you
Yep,
do it
yep,
again,
yep.
and you go back and you do it again, and you know it's a repetition.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm learning from my neighbor Rex, who's just a tremendous tractor operator, is patience. And I just watch Rex, and he doesn't care if it takes 10 trips to do
Yep.
something like that. He just methodically does what needs to
Yeah.
be done. Whereas I want to accomplish it all in one trip. Get on, move on to the next thing, right?
Yep.
Quite a tight space to work in, too.
Yeah, I did, and I've got the 120R loader here, adding complication. But you got to have a high level of complexity, right? That's so you can have high potential scores.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, sure.
You can't get a perfect 10 unless you have a high degree of difficulty in your your routine.
Right. Yeah.
So-
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see if you can load some of this up and haul it over there
Okay.
where those flags are, where we dump some of the rest of it. And like I was saying, we're going to spread this rock out over a lot of this, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I want you to do the best you can
Sure.
for your testing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Just tell yourself that this is your yard and you can't mess up
Yeah.
the grass.
Yep.
Right? Because sometimes you really are that way. Sometimes
yeah.
you're like, hey, I got to get this job done and I don't want to mess up my grass. So put yourself, in this case, we're going to cover it all over and nobody will care. But that's
Okay.
the perfect opportunity, right?
Sure,
to
yeah.
really try it.
Yep.
You should be able to tilt your bucket down a little bit more, right? So it'll get more aggressive. You may want your front wheels on the ground, but there is a risk if you have the bucket all the way down, right, all the way curled under, and you try to put a lot of stress, you can actually break these cylinders.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Okay, but I think the book says 45 degrees. I'm not too concerned about 45 degrees.
Okay.
I think you can go steeper than that. But when you're getting up to 90 or further,
Yeah.
you're putting a lot of risk on those cylinders. When they get fully extended, the cylinders are much easier to break.
Gotcha. Sure.
Right? When they're compressed, to some degree they're not.
Okay.
So I think it cuts a lot better if you'll tip it even more. There you go. There you go. See how that's cutting under there? Now come up and put it down a little further, and yeah, there you go. Yeah, that was good. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do here. We've got this rock that's mixed with dust. I think they give these different numbers and different terminologies pretty much everywhere. Like nothing ever happened. They give this rock different numbers, different names everywhere we go. Here they call it 53s or 73s. We've chosen to get 73s. That starts with the rock that's about 3/4 inch in size and goes all the way down to the dust. You see mainly rock on top. That's kind of how it is after you've stirred it a time or two. The bigger stuff goes to the top and the dust stays in the middle. Now, if you want to see exactly how you're supposed to put down a rock driveway or a parking lot, Mike Morgan just put out a recent episode where he's putting rock around his building, and he's going a formal route that is widely accepted, which is to put down the geotextile fabric and then to put down a heavy layer of big rock, right? He calls them number 3s. Here they're called number 2s. It's kind of a 2-inch rock. And then to use this powdery rock that just really packs well on top. Welcome to Tractor Time with Tim, where we do things halfway. No, we have found that the geotextile is not really that necessary for us. I don't know if it's different soil types. I really don't know why. But we've also found, I got this from my brother who hauled rock for several years with a semi-truck. We have found that the powdery stuff, in our case the 53s, or road pack, another term for it, if we go ahead and put that down originally on the base, we don't have too much problem with it sinking in. It's counterintuitive. You would think that the bigger rocks would hold up more. But my brother made it clear that he actually lost a project once because he brought some of those big 2-inch rocks in as a base. They brought other trucks in and they just went down really quick. His competition brought in 53s to do the same thing, road pack, and it didn't sink. So I think that's counterintuitive, but that's some of the experience that we've seen. So we're just going to take these 73s and spread them out here once we get some of this topsoil removed. So we can have a little bit of a parking lot or a barn lot here between our shelter logic and our main shed. I can't stand for you to have all the fun.
You probably do a better job anyway, and the job will get done.
Now we tease a lot about a box blade and how I can do just the same without it. Truth be told, this would be a great place for a box blade. Would have done this probably a lot faster. Could have just taken a box blade and it would have kind of stayed above that grass if done right, and would have scraped that off really nicely. But we always tease about a box blade. It's more in fun than anything else. I actually had a comment the other day from a guy who said that he was no longer going to watch our videos because I had said something negative about a box blade. So, oh well, I guess that's just the way it goes. We're just having fun, and there's many ways to do a job. Box blades can be very effective. A lot of times I just don't know how to use them very well, probably because I don't try to use it enough. Tell you what, why don't you get this other pile and haul it over there?
Okay.
And then we'll move on to the next step. Have you ever spread much rock?
Not much. We'll give it a shot though.
Yeah, I find it difficult, especially with the powdery rock, to actually spread it out of the bucket and to shake it just right to make it smooth. I find that hard to do.
Will you once we get all this spread out here and got the pile gone, will you come through with a land plane or something like that and kind of flatten it out?
Yeah, you can do some of it with the back of your bucket.
Okay.
And then we can use a land plane or we can use a box blade.
Okay.
A power rake, we might actually use the ritzier tool.
Okay.
Which is, power rake is the end all for that type of work.
Okay.
It's just that it's a lot more expensive than the other tools. I may put some around there on the other side of the shed while you're working here. What's your first thought?
The tractor handles really well. You probably watched it. I was a little jerky. I was a little, there was nothing smooth to the job that I did. And so some of it was getting used to the double pedal on the Deere. I've spent a little time on the Kubota with the single pedal. And so this is a little different.
Of course.
Trying to kind of figure out what RPMs I need to be to run this is a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
As far as the horsepower, the lift, I thought all that really did well. Now I'll be curious once we get into the gravel where we got a lot more weight, what I get into. But just managing this little bit of soil was pretty easy.
Okay. So you think, based on what you've seen so far, that this is about the right size machine?
Yeah. I'm kind of torn between, the next step higher and this one here. Yeah. Yep. So, what I'm going to be using it for is stuff like this, cleaning pig pens, sheep pens. And so the bucket will be handy. I'm going to want to run a rotary cutter. Pretty good chance we're going to have a fairly long driveway, so something that I could use to kind of keep that in shape.
Yeah.
Tiller, you know, those types of things. So, you know, nothing abnormal.
You know, a lot of people say make sure you buy the biggest thing you can afford. Well, I've never been in that camp.
Yeah, right.
I really feel like that a larger tractor has a lot of disadvantages too.
Okay.
And the biggest disadvantage is handling. Right? You just, a tight spot like this, well, I mean, we put you intentionally in a tight spot here.
It was tight.
Yeah, and you would have found the little 1025R to have been much easier to deal with in here. Another area that a big tractor is a disadvantage is bigger tractor means more expensive attachments. Okay, so whereas a 4-foot tiller is great on a little tractor, a 6-foot tiller costs a lot more than a 4-foot tiller.
Sure.
Right, and for up to a 3 Series Deere, you're going to need at least a 5-foot tiller to cover your tracks.
Yep.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
This guy would need at least a 5-foot. I've actually got a 6-foot for it, but you know, it's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to consider. So as you go into the pile here, you've probably done some loader work, you know, to go in at the bottom, go in with the flat, and to try to lift and curl as you go in. You will find that you won't have the ability to lift and curl as you go in. Okay, so if you've used a bigger loader tractor in the past, none of these little tractors of any brand will have that the power to just go in and scoop up a bucket full and run with. Now they can lift a bucket full, but they can't, while you're going in and pushing into the pile, try to lift the whole pile and make it happen. So you'll have some learning there. The very first time you go in, you'll think this thing is so weak it's not going to work, but that's just the way it is, and you learn to work with the equipment you've got.
Okay.
So give yourself a little leeway until such time that you learn. So you take that thing in and you try to kind of lift and curl at the same time as you go in. I drive in pretty hard. A lot of people say don't ram it in. Well, I think with a big tractor that's true, but with one of these little tractors you have to go in pretty hard.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
To get the job done.
So you're thinking run higher RPMs as I'm doing this for sure.
Yes, you definitely want higher RPMs because you get more loader lift as well at higher RPMs. Go in and try to kind of lift and curl as you begin to feel resistance. Don't lift and curl before you feel resistance, but as you feel the resistance, try to lift and curl. And again, for some of the other viewers that are experienced on larger equipment, we have to bend the rules a little bit for these little guys. They just don't have the umph to behave like a huge payloader. I watched a video the other night, the proper way to load your bucket, and it was a huge payloader. And he just went in and didn't seem like he had any issue at all, you know. And he's like, oh, lift your bucket as you go in and curl it back. And he got this big, you know, his 5, 6, 8 yard bucket full, you know. It's just not the way it works.
Right.
So check it out. I'm training Silas right. Don't you think? Good old Pepsi, that's what you need. There used to be a tree here. Before we moved here, when we came here, it was a stump. But there was a big hump of dirt here. I think you're curling a bit too soon. Well, we got her all spread.
Looks good.
Day's about gone. We should have started earlier.
We should have.
I say that about every day, but when early is here, I'm not ready to start.
And it was chillier this morning as well. So
Yeah, it was too cold this morning. It was too early this morning. I have all kinds of reasons why I can't do stuff early in the morning. So what do you think? You think you've learned anything about tractors today?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's always amazing how much you learn after you get on them. You play around with them. You almost wish that the implement dealers were kind of like the car dealers, where you could get out and really do a test drive with it and try them out and see what you like. And this was helpful to be able to play around on this.
So what did you learn?
Definitely, like I mentioned before, learning the 2 pedals of the hydrostat. That's something that was new for me. Understanding the horsepower and the size of this tractor, pushing into a really big pile of rock. You don't just push it in. You got to kind of finesse the bucket a little bit and work it and to get a good load. It was really kind of fun to play with the box blade. And so being able to just kind of run backwards, forwards, and that type of thing.
If we had more time, we'd get a land plane out and we could make this look wonderful. As it is, it still looks a little bit rough, but hey, it's all spread and it's good enough for today. I'll work on that another day. So when you and I first started talking, you were thinking something like a 25 horsepower, a large frame 25 horsepower tractor. And after our first couple of discussions, you kind of were moving away from that a little bit. So you were thinking of a little more horsepower, still with a large frame. Further discussion, you were kind of down between a 2R and a 3R Deere. And I would say that would probably be I think you had looked at a 2501. That would be maybe an LX 3310. Kubota. I don't know if you've looked at one of those.
I have not, no.
Or maybe even a Grandel 3560. That's kind of where you would be in the Kubota range. Now, after spending the day here, what are you thinking in size?
I before I came here today, I was really thinking the 3 Series was going to be the way I went. Now, after being on this machine today, I don't know that that's the case. I almost wonder if the 2 Series with the higher horsepower would do just as good a job for me. So have I made any decisions? Not really, but I've definitely got some things to think about with it.
Yeah, it's really tough. The 3 Series will have more, the 3R we were speaking of, I think you were thinking, come on in here. I think you were thinking the 3033R.
Actually the 3039R.
Okay. So that's very similar in horsepower to this. It's going to have more strength, loader strength, 3-point hitch strength, probably even more PTO power.
Okay.
Even though it's a similar horsepower, it's probably got a bigger engine. It'll probably have a little more torque. But the amenities won't be quite as nice on that, at least on the open station version. Right? So those are some of the trade-offs you have to get, and they cost a good bit more.
Right, sure. Yep, absolutely.
So the 2R is a very nice tractor. The 3R is my dream tractor. This is going to be difficult. Maybe people should vote below which one you should get.
Hey, that sounds good. Yeah.
And if they think you should go with another color, they should let us know what model they think would be best for you.
Yeah, that'll work.
Hey, Silas, you get chilly? I hope you've enjoyed it, Silas. I hope you've enjoyed your Diet Pepsi. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
I hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. You guys forgot to say Tractor Time with Tim.
Do we need to do another take?
No, you get one shot. There is a one-shot deal.